everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michel-Yves. And as you said, the question of the existence of God is indeed a fundamental and passionate issue. And our book tries to summarize as much as we can all the available knowledge on this matter in philosophy, morality, and history, but above all in science, because this field is particularly interesting as we are witnessing what we call a great reversal. For 4 centuries, from Copernicus to Freud, via Galileo, Newton, Laplace, Darwin, science seems to be able to explain the world without the hypothesis of God. And at the end of this, Marx and Freud, who claimed to be scientists, they said that religion was toxic. It was the opium of the people. And all this created a very strong materialist and scientific current that dominated in the past. But things are changing because of a series of scientific revolutions that seems to converge into 3 key facts. The first one is that we are in what we call a space-time, in which time, space, and matter are inextricably linked. And we cannot have one without the 2 others. The second one is that we have strong reasons to believe, as you said, that all this had an absolute beginning. And Georges Lemaitre insists on one point: it's not only the beginning of time and matter, it's also the beginning of space. As soon as you have space, you have time and matter. So, of course, the beginning of space is something that has immense metaphysical implications. Third, there is a fine-tuning, an extraordinarily fine-tuning of all the parameters of the universe, not only the initial data of the universe, but also the value and the ratio of the 4 forces and all the laws of quantum mechanics, physics, chemistry, and biology. All this is incredibly adjusted and calibrated. What can we deduce from this? To keep it simple, we can say that if time, space, and matter all begin together, the cause at the origin of this emergence is by definition outside time, outside space, outside matter. And it has the power to create everything that exists and also to regulate and adjust everything in order that we can be there. So this cause is necessarily of a different sort. It's not in time, space, and matter. We know that the regulation needs to create atoms with very precise value, with stars which could burn for 10 billion years, and also a complex life, which is very unlikely. So we see that with this very simple argument, through science, we approach the basic definition of God, which is that of philosophy and religion. That is to say, a transcendent being outside the universe who created and adjusted everything so that humanity and all life could one day come into being. So God is a real possibility, a logical possibility. But what are the alternatives? If you want to be an atheist, you have to explain two problems. First, the beginning and the fine-tuning. Regarding the fine-tuning, the solution devised was the theory of the multiverse. But this theory has 4 problems. The first one is that it's 100% speculative and unfalsifiable. Second, it has difficulty to explain beauty and harmony that is present everywhere in our universe. Third, to be coherent with the extreme improbability implied by fine-tuning, you would have to postulate staggering numbers of universes on the order of 10 to the power of 500 sterile universes in physics, and even more colossal figures in biology. Perhaps you have to close this. Just nice here. Okay. So, just to explain this a little, 10 to the power of 500 is a very huge number, because if you have to count to 1 billion, saying one figure every second, night and day, you will have You will need 30 years. And if you have to count to 1 billion, billion, it will take 2 billion times the age of the universe. So it's very important. So just to figure out what is 10 to the power of 500, it's something like this. You see, it's an incredible number. So if you are an atheist, you need to believe that somewhere it exists sterile universes in such a staggering number. So is it reasonable to accept such figures? Not sure. And last but not least, there is an even more important problem, because if you have to select all the parameters of the universe in a very tiny range, the natural process, the machine that creates universes, should be fine-tuned, because you need to, this video explains this very well. You need to choose the value of the parameters of the universe not between 0 and infinity. You need to target a certain range. So the machine must be precisely adjusted, but who then did fine-tune this machine? That's the objection, the reason why Stephen Hawking declares the multiverse theory is dead. And he said in the same that the theory of everything, which imagined that all parameters of the universe are tied together by a meta law to allow no other value than the one they have, is also dead. So all this is problematic, said Liz Moline, Paul Davies, and many others, especially since a large number of cosmologists have worked on string theory over the past 40 years with great imagination and creativity, but without convincing results. In the end, some have asked the question, is the multiverse really an explanation or a desperate answer? And there is nothing else at this time to attempt to explain the fine-tuning problem. Regarding the beginning, it's the same. Several solutions have been proposed, but none of them are convincing either. If you imagine an infinite amount of time in the past, you will have an infinite number of cyclical universes, an infinite number of Big Bang and Big Crunches. But it does not work because of 4 reasons. First, entropy should be at a maximum, which is not the case now. Black holes should be very numerous, which is not the case now also. The cosmological constant should have been dominant after a few cycles. That's the case today, but only 4 billion, it begins only 4 billion years ago. And 4, finally, the universe might not be homogeneous and isotropic as it is. And after 7 or 8 cycles, you will have something like a cigar. So it does not work. And what else can explain the beginning? Lawrence Krauss introduced the very mediatic but not very serious idea of a universe created from nothing. But what he calls nothing is something, and absolutely not nothing. And others speak of quantum fluctuation to explain the beginning, but this cannot be the beginning, as the possibility of this event presupposes that space already exists. Finally, Stephen Hawking from Cambridge once imagined that because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. But there is 2 logical issues in this sentence, because there is a law of gravity, it's not nothing also, it's something. And creating itself, to create oneself is something illogical, but because you cannot be there to create yourself. So John Lennox, a friend of us, replies, nonsense remains nonsense, even when talked by world-famous scientists. At the end, none of these attempts works. So what remains then? We are pointing in our book the astonishment of the greatest scientists regarding the discoveries of modern science, and it's amazing. We gathered quotes from 10 top scientists, including 63 top Nobel Prize winners, to observe that some of the greatest scientists, often agnostics or atheists, spontaneously talk about God, miracles, astonishing coincidences, when describing the incredible settings and complexity that allows us to exist. Nobody puts a gun on their head forcing them to talk about God, miracles, or coincidences. They did it because they could not do otherwise. Let's remember the typical case of Fred Hoyle, the teacher of Robert Wilson, who wrote the first preface of our book. At the beginning, Hoyle was an atheist, and because of this, he fought against Georges Lemaitre, and he coined the term Big Bang in order to mock the concept. Yet he converted later, becoming a believer, because he discovered that the triple alpha reaction that enables carbon synthesis in stars would be impossible without an excited state of carbon at a very precise value, energy level, unknown at that time. He concluded that a super intellect deliberately designed the law of nuclear physics. You will find dozens of examples like this in our book, many in physics, of course, but also in biology, because, and the conclusion is always the same. All the parameters that determine our world are unbelievably adjusted and calibrated, and that inspires wonder. Another great example is the one of Roger Penrose. He calculated that to start off the universe in a state of low entropy required for galaxies, stars, and life to exist, the creator had to aim the distribution of energy and mass at the origin of the universe with an accuracy of 1 part in 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123, which is, of course, a mind-blowing precision. A few weeks ago, we were in Berkeley. We talked with Saul Perlmutter, who revealed in 1998, together with Brian Schmidt and Adam Riess, that after 8 billion years, the expansion of the universe began to reaccelerate, which means that there is a cosmological constant in the Friedman and Lemaitre equations. After 8 billion years, it ended up dominating the other terms of the equation, which were decreasing due to the increase of the size of the universe. This discovery is very surprising because the measured value of the cosmological constant is much smaller than what we could predict by the standard model of particle physics. And it's incredible for 2 reasons. The first one is that there is a difference of 120 order of magnitude between what were expected and what is measured. The value is very, very small, but not 0. Something miraculous had made this value extremely small, down to the 120th decimal place. The fact is that, the second point is that it's indeed very miraculous, because if the value of this tiny cosmological constant had been just 10 times greater, the acceleration of the universe that we observe now after 8 billion years would have occurred much earlier at the very beginning of the universe, and the formation of galaxies would have been impossible. So the figure that you see there, if the 1, 3, and 8 were just 1 or 2 ranks before, we will not be there to talk about this. So how can you explain this? Is it by chance? In fact, chance exists, of course, but if you win the lottery every Sunday during 1 year, or if you roll double sixes 100 times in a row when throwing dice, or if you throw Scrabble letters in the air and they line up in a correct sentence that also express something very beautiful, that's not chance. You have to look for another explanation. In summary, all these reasons, and after investigating also the fields of philosophy, morality, and history, it seems that the thesis of the existence of a creator God is more convincing than ever. In fact, there is a great reversal, especially in science, and a lot of books and publications confirm this. We have a lot of friends publishing a lot of things, and it's very special. What we can say is that there is a great reversal, but the public remains largely unaware of this. So what should be done? With Michelis, we think that we know that it's a sensitive, passionate, and emotional subject, but we try to make a debate on this. And it's a risky debate because we have a very original chapter that shows that all the scientists who discovered the Big Bang in Russia were violently persecuted, also in Germany and in China, by atheist regimes. And ideology is it's very prevalent in this issue. Today also, if you look at this kind of attitude, George Wald, for example, he said that he cannot accept supernatural creation on philosophical grounds. And the same for Richard Lewontin. He said that he had a prior commitment to materialism and he cannot look at even imagine some God. So this kind of attitude makes it very, very difficult to discuss, of course, sometimes. But we have to try this. We have to create a debate because it's more, in our point of view, it's more necessary than ever. To finish, let me thank you for your time. It's, of course, a great honor and a great joy to be here with you, standing with you all, and to talk of all this here at Cambridge after Princeton and Berkeley, and we will have Oxford in a few weeks. It's very impressive for us and very, very strong, and we hope that it will create the debate that we expect about God and science more everywhere in the media and in the broad audience. Thank you very much.